What's up, everybody? Welcome to the first official SNS Sports Talk. That's Matt Santamoro. I'm Anthony Saccone. Everybody calls us San and Sack, hence the SNS Sportscast. We're going to be covering everything sports-related, whether it's trending, not trending. We're going to bring you guys nothing but the best news in a fun and interactive way.
So today we're going to start off by talking about the NFL draft that just recapped on Saturday. Today we're going to go in depth on analyses of our fan favorite teams. And as you can see, I'm a Jets fan, and Ant is very sporadically a Arizona Cardinals fan, which coming from New York is a little bit rare. I mean, I know you see Cowboys fans and Steelers fans everywhere, but a Cardinals fan, that's a little bit of a shot in the dark there. But, anyway, we're going to discuss this today and maybe even throw in a couple more picks that we like as well and see where that goes. So, Ant, why don't you start us off and tell us what you like about Isaiah Simmons at 8?
Yeah, so, I love the pick. General manager Steve Keim. He didn't go with need, which everybody in every single mock draft had the Cardinals taking a right tackle like Wirfs or like Jedrick Wills. Steve Keim, he just went best available, and that was, of course, Isaiah Simmons. I know I didn't expect him to be there at 8. What the Cardinals getting on multiple positions. You can move him to safety. You can move him to nickel corner. He does a whole bunch of things. He's 6'4", 230, runs a 4.3 40, which is absolutely scary. If that's coming at me and I'm an offensive player, I'm getting out of the way. I'm ducking. I'm running out of bounds. I'm doing something. But he really deepens this Cardinals defense, and they really didn't have a good defense last year. So I really love the pick by Steve Keim, and I expect Simmons to step in right away and make a huge impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems like Simmons might have been the best defensive player on the board other than Chase Young. So I know sometimes, you got to go play a position of what you need. But when you're a team like the Cardinals that are still, maybe a piece or two away from competing, you need to sometimes take the best player available. And Simmons at that time was just too good to pass up on. I know some people look at an off-ball linebacker as not necessarily the most important position on the field, but this guy is a do-it-all guy that kind of reminds me of like a C.J. Mosley light. He can drop back into coverage. He could make good tackles over the middle of the field and just kind of plays everywhere. From linebacker, he can drop back. People say he might even be the best safety in the draft. So I think overall it was a very solid pick by the Cardinals, and there was just no way you could pass up on a talent of that caliber.
I totally agree. I think he's going to change the landscape of NFL draft picks for the next 10 to 15 years. And a football player that's an absolute gifted freak, but can also play linebacker, safety, corner, does it all. So I really see him changing the landscape of the NFL for the better.
Absolutely.
So the New York Jets, they selected a offensive tackle, and Matt, I'm going to let you introduce him and talk a little more about him.
Yeah, well, the Jets selected Mekhi Becton out of Louisville with their 11th overall pick, and I'm sure most of everybody that's watching this has probably seen the size of this guy. I mean, the guy is an absolute mammoth. He's 6'7", 364 pounds, by far the biggest guy the Jets have ever had, and super athlete. Ran a 5.1 40-yard dash at the combine, which is the fastest 40-yard dash ever run by somebody over 6'6" and over 350 pounds. He immediately slides into left tackle on the Jets offensive line, which is newly rebuilt with center guard Connor McGovern, Greg Van Roten. Joe Douglas made a lot of really good additions to that line in the offseason to try to protect Sam Darnold. And Becton's just another example of this. He finishes his blocks real well, very much well known for knocking defenders down all over the place, kind of tossing them over like playing in a youth football league. You watch the tape on this guy, and it's kind of comical to watch some of the times that he's thrown down pro-ready defenders with ease just based on his size.
And speaking of the tape, how about that video, him pushing a truck at like 50? The truck had to be going 50 miles an hour, just him pushing it, and the truck was in complete park.
Yeah, I mean, that's just insane. I mean, the fact that the car was in park, I know a lot of people push cars in neutral to try to get an exercise in, but I mean, a parked car, I mean, that guy was moving that thing uphill. I mean, just to go along with that, I mean, his athleticism, if you saw him on the basketball court as well, I mean, that was very impressive. He was able to catch the ball at the short corner and
nice footwork,
one dribble, beat a guy to the rim and dunk a ball off 2 feet. And
insane.
I know he's 6'7", but not many guys that big are able to get off the ground that quickly.
Right.
So it was very impressive.
As a Jets fan, as we all know, Darnold, the Jets lost Robbie Anderson. Personally, did you like the Becton pick, or would you have rather the Jets gone with a guy like Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, or CeeDee Lamb?
Well, the Jets loved Lamb and they loved Ruggs. There's no doubt about that. And those are wide receiver one caliber guys that I do think would have made a positive impact on the Jets. However, I say it all the time. It's a very well-known thing, and especially in most analysts' opinions. The game of football starts on the line of scrimmage, and
100%.
defensive line, offensive line. So no matter who the playmakers are, if you don't have a line protecting Sam Darnold, he's not going to be able to even get the ball to the playmakers. You could see Le'Veon Bell's tape
Right.
from last year to help prove that.
Mm-hmm.
I think this year that they needed to take a tackle, and Becton, in my opinion, was actually the right pick. I know people wanted Tristan Wirfs, but
Right.
I think Becton was the better pick. I know he's not as safe of a pick necessarily as Wirfs, as they say Wirfs might be more ready to step in now, but the
Mm-hmm.
upside that Becton has is just astronomical. And the other problem is they were worried that Wirfs might have to move to guard one day, and they're hoping that Becton can stay
Right.
at tackle.
Mm-hmm.
The main problem with Becton as to why he even fell to 11 and being the third lineman taken was he does have some technique flaws. He gets beat sometimes on counters and off the edge if a guy's not intimidated so much by his size, which,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in college, you get both case scenarios. In the NFL, guys are not going to be afraid of him. I know what the size, how big he is, but you see a guy rushing the edge like that, they're not going to be afraid of him. So they're a little worried about his technique, but they say like he's just too athletic to pass up on, and they believe that he could potentially be a Pro Bowl caliber lineman and Sam Darnold's blindside blocker for the next 10 to 12 years. So
Mm-hmm.
overall, while I have a little bit of concern about Becton's, maybe ability to not stay in shape, worried that he could get a little bit overweight. It's hard for a big guy like that to stay as healthy and fit as he is, but it's very rare to find a guy that big and that athletic in a draft at any position. And the fact that he fell to 11, I think, made this pick the correct pick.
I like it. And that leads into the Cardinals' next pick, which was not until the third round. They took Josh Jones, who was a left tackle for the University of Houston. Many mock drafts had him selected as a first-round caliber prospect. He fell all the way to the third round. The Cardinals absolutely jumped on him with the 72nd pick. And like you said, the game starts on the line. So that's why I was a little uneasy at first when they took Isaiah Simmons. But looking back on it, knowing that the Cardinals grabbed a guy like Josh Jones in the third round is huge. As a Cardinals fan, we all know the future of the Cardinals is K1 for 10. You have to sack the most out of any quarterback a season ago. So I really like Josh Jones. He's a left tackle. That is the one position the Cardinals do have on the O-line, though, in DJ Humphries. But what I like about Josh Jones is I'm thinking he's going to move to right tackle. Maybe not right away. They'll ease him in. And maybe not this year, but the following year, I'm really thinking the Cardinals got their offensive tackle, right tackle of the future.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I love what I've seen about this guy Jones. I mean, the Cardinals were linked to tackles in the first round, and it just was too hard to pass up on Simmons at that position. I know they could have went with Jedrick Wills, who they liked a lot from Alabama.
That's where I thought they were going.
Ended up going to Cleveland at 10. But Josh Jones is a guy that everything I've read about would have been a guaranteed first-round pick if he did not play at the University of Houston. If this guy was an SEC player, like just because of the the stigma of not being in the SEC or the not being in the Big Ten hurt him, because they believe he's immediately ready to compete for a starting job. And any help Kyler Murray can get, because that guy was running for his life all year last year, and he was still very impressive with his accuracy on his throws. I think that this is a very solid upgrade at tackle for them, and he has a chance to compete from day one, which is exactly what you could ask for.
A crazy stat about Josh Jones: 45 games started in college, only 3 sacks allowed on that left side over at Houston. So the dude was a mammoth. He was bullying some people on the left side. Of course, he didn't play too many high-level competition teams, but I still love the pick. And like you said, that is probably the main reason he fell out of the first and second round all the way to the third round. As a Cardinal fan, I was sitting there. I was like, had my fingers crossed. I was like, take Josh Jones. When I heard Steve Keim say it, I was absolutely in love with the pick. And it was just a great move for the Cardinals. But now we're going to flash back to the second round, because the Jets, you guys had, I believe, a couple picks.
So we had our second round pick, only one. But we needed the much needed receiver, and we got one here. Right. So Joe Douglas.
You guys traded back. That was it.
Yes, we traded back. Joe Douglas looks like an absolute genius here. We sat with the number 48 pick and a bunch of wide receivers like Michael Pittman and Chase Claypool, and a bunch of guys were going in front of us. So Joe Douglas had his eyes on Denzel Mims out of Baylor the whole time, and was able to trade back with the Seahawks to number 59 and recoup an extra third-round pick and still take Mims. So I was very impressed by that. I'll get into more of Joe Douglas's first draft as a Jets GM a little bit later, a little bit more on what I think he did really well. But I like the pick.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I thought he was going first round. Originally, I was thinking he was going to Minnesota, but obviously, when Justin Jefferson kept falling, the Eagles, they made a terrible pick. Rager, I believe, was the receiver they took in the first round.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't think he was first round material. I thought Mims was better than him, and I obviously thought Justin Jefferson was better than him. So with Mims sitting there so late and guys like Michael Pittman coming off the board before him, absolute genius move by Joe Douglas. Trading back, getting another couple picks, and then taking the guy that they originally wanted.
Win-win. Couldn't have worked out much better. I mean, what they got in Mims is a big, long, fast receiver. I mean, if you just look at his size, 6'3", 207 pounds, with a wingspan of about 34 inches, which is pretty damn big. His catch radius is huge. I mean, if you look at some of his highlight reel of being at Baylor, especially for this past year, Mel Kiper said that this guy just catches everything. Like it seems that way too. Last year, he finished the season with 66 receptions for 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. I believe it might take this guy a little bit of time to develop into that top guy that the Jets are looking for in the draft.
I agree. I don't think he's number one right out of college. I think maybe 1-2 years he could be a number one. However, I mean, Sam Darnold, he's a good QB, but he's not a deep ball kind of quarterback. So I think if they could really stress to Mims those short routes, out and ups, out and ins, curls, I think he could really help Sam Darnold out, especially with that height.
Yeah, I agree. And the good news is, though, about Mims, like I know you said Darnold's arm's not great, which it's not. It's not the best arm in the league. But the one thing that Mims does do really well is catch the ball along the sideline, which is an example of him being able to run a route. I know people sometimes question, like coming from a Big 12 offense where most of the time the receivers just run one pattern routes and like literally one cut routes because it's just such a up-tempo, powerful offensive league, which is why it's actually a little bit weird because if you look at Mims's yards after catch last year, it wasn't that great because a lot of the time he was having to come back to the ball and make tough catches along the sideline. But that's actually encouraging to me because it shows that he's not just a one-dimensional receiver that runs straight and needs to be lightning fast and beat guys. It shows that he's able to adjust to the ball and make some pretty spectacular catches, as you've seen with some of them that he's made, which I think helped Darnold a lot because I know the Jets lost Robbie Anderson, but they did sign Rashard Perryman, who they're not saying, of course, is as good as Anderson, but he's like an Anderson clone or Anderson light, they called him, which he gives them a deep threat, which is great. And if you have him going along one sideline and then you have Mims along the other sideline, it gives you a two-dimensional passing attack, which the Jets haven't had in a couple of years. And then with Jamison Crowder in the slot, I actually think that if Adam Gase is able to
fast guy,
if Adam Gase is able to cook up some good plays in the playbook, I think they have a good shot at improving upon an offense that ranked among the worst in the league last year. So overall, I applaud Douglas greatly for being able to trade back into the get an extra third round pick while also drafting the guy that they wanted. So
why don't you take us through the third round pick?
So I'll get into that. So the Jets now had, because of this Seahawks trade, have 3 third-round picks. Their own, the trade from the Seahawks, which was pick 101, which is a compensation round pick technically, but it still counts as round 3. And they also had a pick from the Giants, which they got from Leonard Williams in that trade at the midseason, which in my opinion was
steal.
Unreal trade. I can't believe Dave Gettleman was even willing to trade a third and a fourth round pick for a guy that they might have only had for 6 games. I know they signed him to a tender now, but nobody knows where that's going to go in the future.
I think you and me had the same amount of sacks as Leonard Williams sitting on our couches.
Yeah, exactly. That guy, Leonard Williams, is so good at getting to the quarterback. He did not know how to tackle the quarterback. Not even a clue.
Nope. One of
the best almost sack leaders in the league.
The value you got in that trade for him was just remarkable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely insane. But anyway, so with the extra third-round pick they recouped from the Giants, it was the 68th overall pick. They took Ashton Davis, a safety from California, walk on too. Walk on at Cal, right? What do you think about the Jets taking a safety though, when that might be one of their more shored up positions overall?
I think it came down to Douglas taking, in his eyes, best player available, I think. Because if there is, listen, the Jets, I mean, they got a lot of holes. It's no secret. But the one strong suit of that Jets team is their safeties, Marcus May and Jamal Adams. So I'm not too crazy about the Ashton Davis pick. I think they could have went a lot of other routes in that situation. But the fact that you guys had 3 second-round picks, maybe taking the best player available is not the worst thing. We saw it with the Cardinals. We saw it all throughout the draft. A lot of teams taking best available players and not as much as filling the needs.
Yeah, right. So like you just hit it like nail on the head. I mean, lots of times, I said it before at the Cardinals, teams that are still in the process of getting back into contention need to take good players. Like you can't just look for a little fill in here. You can't look for a fill in here. We're not talking about, the 2010s Patriots here where they're looking for one specific hole that they need to fill. The thing that I like about this guy is his work ethic. Like you said, being a walk-on, not only in football, he walked on the track team as well at Cal, and ended up becoming a Pac-10, All-American runner and hurdler. So the guy is a good athlete for sure. Super athletic, very versatile, 6'1", 202-pound safety that also plays slot corner, which is important. So he could be run out there in nickel packages as well. I kind of feel like Greg Williams handpicked this guy to be part of their defense. And he's more of a center fielder, so he's a free safety in my opinion. So he kind of resembles Marcus May, maybe a little more versatile. But with the way that the Jets contract situations are, Marcus May is only on one more year of his deal. And Jamal Adams, as much as I hate to say it, his contract negotiations
might
go
be
sad.
the reason for this pick right there. I didn't even think of that. Jamal Adams, he obviously has had a lot of turmoil in the press. So who knows? Maybe he comes to the desert.
Yeah,
Red
no,
Sea, Arizona.
I don't think he looked good in red. He looks good in jet green. So let's hold your horses there a little bit. But
all right. So how about the next 2 picks?
Yeah. I'll get into that. Last thoughts on Davis. I actually think that this guy could potentially jump in right away, maybe even cover cornerback receivers as well, not just stay there and play free safety, because he was able to accumulate 7 picks in college, which I think shows that he can really cover the receivers. Did the Cardinals have another third? No, right? That was it?
No, they just had the 1/3 and no second.
Okay, so I'll just touch briefly on the next 3rd round pick then, which is Jabari Zuniga, edge rusher from Florida, which is the 79th overall pick. Real quick, just basically a non-polished pass rusher who has had some success, though, at Florida. He's a very one-dimensional pass rusher with a quick first step, beats guys off the edge, and accumulated 18.5 sacks during his time at Florida. So he did have some success. Obviously, pass rusher is a position the Jets have struggled to find the last couple of years. Yep. And one of the biggest on the field. You know that. I mean, what's better than generating pass?
An edge rusher, then, one of the most key parts of the defense.
Mm-hmm. So I think it was very important that they tried to address it at some point. Zuniga missed like almost half the season last year with a high ankle sprain, which is maybe why his stock fell a little bit. But overall, I think the Jets have swung and missed too much on edge rushers that it's only about time that one of these hits, right?
One of them should, right. We'll find a diamond in the rough, but hey, we'll see.
Absolutely. And then briefly, real quick, the 3rd Jets pick of the 3rd round ended up getting traded again. Joe Douglas traded back with the Patriots, which just shows you what kind of GM he is, because I can't tell you how many trades the Jets have made with the Patriots over time. And now the last year they've made 2. So they were able to recruit 2 4th-round picks and a 2021 6th-round pick, which they actually traded to them last year for Demaryius Thomas. So it was nice to get that pick back. And so Joe Douglas, just working the draft as much as he can. Now, anyway, back over to the Cardinals. Let's let Ant talk about Leaky Fatu.
Yep, Leaky Fatu, 4th-round pick, nose tackle. Some guys, I was listening to Bleacher Report, they said he might just be the 2nd-best nose tackle in this draft class. I don't believe it just yet. But the thing about Leaky Fatu, he's not going to get after the quarterback as much as one would like. He is strictly a run defense specialist, So you put Leaky Fatu right at nose tackle to give Corey Peters a break, as well as Adrian Phillips a break, who the Cardinals just signed over from Buffalo. He'll be used in run-specific scenarios only, this guy Leaky Fatu, and I love it because the Arizona Cardinals ranked 31st in running rush defense a year ago. So I love this pick for the Cardinals. Solidify that run defense right over the middle. And as we said, Matt, what is the most important area of the field that you win the games?
Line of scrimmage.
Line of
Can't
scrimmage.
stress
Win
it
it
enough.
in the trenches. So
Yep,
that's why I love
absolutely.
this pick.
Yeah, no, this guy, like what I've read on this guy is he's a run stuffer that the Cardinals can be patient with. They could wait on him. There's not necessarily a guy that needs to come in and make, a bunch of tackles next year. But shoring up the run game where the Cardinals ranked, next to last in the run defense last year is very important because, the Cardinals have some talent in secondary, and now it's Simmons back there and ready to go with Patrick Peterson. People are not going to want to throw the ball on them necessarily so much. But if you can't stop a runner, then it doesn't matter.
Right. I watched Cardinals games, Cardinal game after Cardinal game. They just got gashed. And it wasn't like running backs were going outside around the tackle. Nope. They were going right down the middle, north and south, right on the Cardinals, and they had no answer for it. And then the Cardinals, they also had another 4th-round pick where, guess what they did? They went nose tackle again. Rashard Lawrence, big man out of LSU, another run defense specialist. What I really love about Lawrence is he would just clog the gaps. He'd go A gap, B gap, and he'd just fill holes and take offensive guards and nose tackles away. Not nose tackles, offensive guards and tackles away so that he freed up the rest of his team. Kayvon Chason, the edge rusher, who was drafted by the Jaguars, he had free reign to all quarterbacks, mainly because of the work that Rashard Lawrence was doing inside the trenches. He opened up holes for guys like Chason and guys like Patrick Queen. I expect him to do the exact same thing in Arizona because they got a pretty dang good offensive outside linebacker in Chandler Jones that I'm hoping my boy Rashard Lawrence will open some holes for.
Yeah, I think he will eventually be a contributor to you guys. It's a very fascinating pick. They do say, reports that I have read coming from a couple different sources like ESPN, say he needs to get a little stronger to be able to hold his own in the NFL. But the only good thing that, he has work. He's a project. He played at LSU, played in the SEC, which is big because you play against teams like Alabama all year. And they have the most pro-ready linemen in the whole country, those teams. So I do think that if he gets a little bit stronger, he could potentially come in and very sporadically, but play some snaps for the Cardinals this year and potentially be a big key up front. You got him and you got Fotu, and, it's the second step of the rebuilding process for the Cardinals defensive line. I think it's a good pick.
I completely agree. Yep. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. So since we've been talking about the running game so much, I might as well bring up the Jets' 4th-round pick, their first of 3 actually, which was a running back, LaMichael Perine from Florida. Perine's the cousin of NFL running back Samaje Perine, who he played for the Redskins most of the time.
Yeah,
I believe.
Short. I don't know if is he done yet. I know he had a short-lived career. Promising prospect out of Oklahoma, never really amounted to much.
Yeah, I remember. He was supposed to come in there and compete for that job, and then they brought back 35-year-old Adrian Peterson, and he ended up taking all the snaps from him. So the scouting report on Perine is a potential complement runner to Le'Veon Bell, not a replacement, but a complement.
Right. You're not replacing it. One of the highest-paid running backs in the league.
No way. So Perine is more of a downhill power runner than a finesse runner, which complements Bell's style of being patient in the backfield. He's more of a give me the ball and try to pop a hole as soon as I find it, which is good because the Jets needed a depth at running back. They struggled with that last year. And when Bell didn't play, it was kind of like relying on an older version of Bilal Powell, who was way past his prime. And I know they tried Trenton Cannon and they tried Elijah McGuire as well, but none of those picks seem to hit. So they're hoping that this is finally their backup running back that they could rely on in potential 3rd down situations or, short 4th and goal. But he also, believe it or not, catches the ball a lot out of the backfield, which you don't see a lot from run heavy, downhill running backs, which is good. So it's a nice complementing style. He could be a nice weapon for Adam Gase.
And now, if I'm not mistaken, you guys took a quarterback.
Yes, we did.
With this next pick, I want more on him because you jumped Jacob Fromm.
Yes, so this was an interesting pick. So before I get into the stats, 8 points per game is a number I'm going to say. You know what that number means?
I don't know. What are you using it in terms of?
That's the number of points the Jets scored per game with Sam Darnold not under center.
Yeah, that's an issue. That's a big issue. You guys may have sneaked in the playoffs if Darnold was healthy all year. You guys were close. He missed a couple games with, of course, mono. But
well, we went 7-9 last year. We played 3 games without Darnold in a row against the Browns, the Eagles, and the Patriots. And it's kind of hard to say to a rookie quarterback, especially after the first set of downs of Trevor Siemian stepping in against the Browns on Monday Night Football, him breaking his leg.
Yep.
By in my opinion, dirty play by what's the lineman's name?
Garrett.
Myles Garrett. Couldn't think of it. But it's kind of hard for him to step in on Monday Night Football, taking his first snaps, in prime time like that. And to go against the Eagles and the Patriots, two perennial playoff teams after that, it's kind of hard. So, I give them a little bit of a pass, but you can't score 8 points a game and expect to win. I mean, just watching that Cleveland game on Monday night, the Baker Mayfield played terrible. It was awful to watch, and the Jets had no shot still. They gave us so many opportunities to put the ball in the end zone, and we just couldn't even get past three. We go 3 out every time.
Yeah.
So anyway,
quarterback was a big need. So what do you think? What do you think of? We'll introduce him first because I don't even know his name yet.
Yep. The backup quarterback that the Jets selected is James Morgan out of Florida International. Early thoughts, 4th round, a little early. What do you think? A little early to take a backup?
I thought FIU especially. I mean, with Jake Fromm there, I like what Jake Fromm did at Georgia. So I'm curious what you think if you like this quarterback better than you like Jake Fromm coming out.
Well, you know what I think it is? Jake Fromm, I know this is going to sound so backwards in a sense, but a guy like Jake Fromm has enough talent to potentially compete to start somewhere. That's my opinion. I think
agree.
that he had the talent in the right situation to maybe compete to start, not necessarily as a rookie, but, you've seen him enough in Georgia. I mean, the guy stepped in as a freshman.
Games. Yep, college football playoff a couple times in his career. Yep. So that's why I question why he wasn't selected by the Jets.
Well, I think that they were actually looking for a backup, like literal, as much as literal sense that sounds. Of course, even if they brought in Fromm, he would be a backup. But I think long term, it would have made less sense for them to draft Jake Fromm than to take a project.
I like that. I agree.
Now, to go against that argument, 4th round is very early to take a project quarterback.
I agree.
This guy might have been able to be there in the 5th, 6th rounds. I mean, who even knows?
Maybe 7th, maybe undrafted.
Maybe even undrafted. And those are the guys you really look for projects. 4th round's a round where you need to take talent that could come in and compete for a job. So I don't love the pick. The brief background on him is he has a big arm, which is always important because it's nice to have somebody that's able to sling it, at least. Yeah. I mean, hey, even for practice, even if he's on, the practice squad, he's on the scout team. I mean, it helps to have somebody of that caliber where defensive backs are challenged a little bit, which, it helps. You need that. But a 4th round pick, I'm not sold.
Right. I wouldn't like that pick either. But at the end of the day, if I'm a Jets fan, the only positive twist that I could put on that is you guys didn't have a backup quarterback. You addressed that need. Hopefully, as a Jets fan, Darnold goes the entire season without any injury, and then you never even have to worry about who the backup quarterback is. But who knows, maybe Darnold misses a game here or there. This guy steps in and puts up maybe 9 points a game instead of 8.
Listen, any improvement's an improvement. So, look, Darnold's last 2 years, both injuries. The first time was because his offensive line collapsed, and they went and made sure they addressed that area this year already. And he had mono, so
his system wasn't doing too dandy there.
No, I think it's more of a bad luck thing with Darnold because he has, when he stayed healthy for good stretches of time, showed promise. I say it, the stretch he had 2 years ago, the last 3 games of the season, he played the Texans, the Packers, and the Bills 3 games in a row, and he showed what kind of quarterback he could be throughout having an 8-1 touchdown to interception ratio over 3 games, giving the Jets an opportunity to win all 3. Now, of course, the rest of the talent around him wasn't so great. So, he was able to win the game in Buffalo, make a nice comeback against a decent Bills team and a good defense.
Yeah. And you guys had the Bills beat this year, week 1, and then C.J. Mosley goes down. The rest of the team just falls apart. But you guys are up big on Buffalo at halftime.
I think
that slipped through the cracks.
I think that the Jets' most important free agent signing, which, of course, I'm sure we could get into this on different episodes of this. He was maybe their most important free agent signing, if you want to put it like that, where having him for a whole season is a difference maker on the defense. You could see that in that first quarter that he played healthy. But anyway, so back to the pick real quick, just kind of coming back full circle. I would have preferred them to take a wideout again here because there were still some talented ones on the board, and Douglas only drafted one the whole draft, or potentially a corner. But Jets did address that later in the draft, which we will get into.
All right, we'll keep things rolling here. We'll go back to the Cardinals, right? Why not?
Yeah, the Cardinals had another fourth round. Did they have another fourth round pick? No,
Nope,
they used it too.
They actually didn't have a fifth either. They jumped right to the sixth round. They didn't have that many picks this year. They traded a second round pick away for DeAndre Hopkins, which if I'm the Cardinals, I would give a second round pick for the next 3,000 years if it brings in a receiver like DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, it makes me wonder sometimes what Bill O'Brien's thinking in his head. I mean, that guy just when unable to recruit a first round pick for Hopkins or Clowney in back-to-back years is something that really, he must have some blackmail about this owner or something, because I don't know.
I just wish we had like a video recorder in the room with the Cardinals GM when Bill O'Brien said okay to these ridiculous terms for DeAndre Hopkins just for David Johnson and a second round pick, and the entire contract of David Johnson, which I'm not even gonna get into. He's like the fifth highest paid running back in the league for a guy that gave you, I think, 3 touchdowns a year. So
go ahead. Why don't you bring us back to it?
I'll bring us back to the pick. Fifth round pick. The Cardinals keep on addressing that defense up the middle. They take a middle linebacker, and Evan Weaver out of California. Weaver, he's not going to wow you with tremendous athleticism, but he has this right here, and that is a brain. He led the Pac-12 in tackles at the University of California a season ago. Most tackles out of anybody in the conference. A smart linebacker that's always thinking. And as a middle linebacker, think of Luke Kuechly, a guy who just reads defenses so well, and look how good he turned out to. I'm not comparing Evan Weaver to Luke Kuechly by any means, but what I'm saying is you're getting a smart linebacker that's going to read plays well, and he'll get you a lot of tackles. And Cardinals, they don't have many linebackers up the middle. They just were getting gashed all year last year. So I love Steve Keim addressing right down the middle defense.
Where do you see him as his role next year on the team? Do you see him having any type of an impact, or do you think he's a more developmental player down the line?
I see him as maybe a fourth string middle linebacker, because the Cardinals, they went out, they signed Devondre Campbell from the Atlanta Falcons. They got Jordan Hicks. He's a stud at middle linebacker. So I see those two having a big role. And then you got Hassan Riddick, who they took in the first round a couple of years ago, and he's just been atrocious. So I think Weaver can push Riddick right on out. And I see him making some plays here. And Joe Walker, exactly. So I see Weaver stepping in. He's going to make plays. I see him being a playmaker, and that's what this defense needs.
Yeah, that's important. And I could see him, I was just doing a little bit of research, he has the potential to step in and play special teams right away as well, which is, help. I mean, as much as some people hate it, you need to play it. I mean,
it's a huge part of the game. Look New England Patriots, every single year, the greatest special teams in the league. And what do? They win games. Game after game, they win. They get help from all sides of the ball. And that's how you win championships. So
absolutely,
you got to address special teams, defense, offense, the whole nine. I think Arizona got a little 2-for-1 here in Weaver.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the pick. So now I think we should do a little circling back here because the Cardinals only had 5 picks in this draft, so they kind of spread out.
They had 6. We just discussed 5. They only got 1 more that they took in the 7th round. So I'll let you talk about the Jets picks, and I'll come back to this Cardinals 7th round.
Yeah. See, these next 2 picks are ones that I actually like a lot, and 2 of them.
I know there's one in here that you love. I'm interested to see why.
2 of the most important picks of the draft. And we're going to start back to the 4th round. One of the picks that they recouped in the trade back with the Patriots was the 129th pick. And here they took Cameron Clark, an offensive tackle from the University of Charlotte.
Hey, you guys need a line? I like it.
Now, I have an pretty interesting story here to go with this. So me personally, I actually happened to visit the University of Charlotte a couple of years back. And it was cool because I was going there taking a tour of the campus, and I just remember the guy that was taking us around showed us their football stadium. And if I remember correctly, if this is the same scenario, which I'm pretty sure it is, they didn't have a football team. And
no way.
They had no football team. So I remember them showing us the stadium and taking us through the weight room and all that stuff and saying that this is our first class. And I don't know if they had one previously and it was like canceled, or this is the first time they ever had it, but it was really interesting. Like, yep, this is the first class. And obviously Cameron Clark was in that first class, which is very cool to see. You know, it's like a cool, like full circle back where
And
I
now
was
he's
just an interesting little
potentially
personal note. I was like, all
future
right.
offensive lineman.
Yep, now he's a Jets offensive lineman. And I really like this pick because you can never have too many linemen. Joe Douglas has addressed that and stated that the whole offseason. And he's brought in millions of guys. I mean, whether it be starter caliber guys that push each other through free agency, through the draft. And I mean, I think he's doing a good job with his offensive line. I think it's really improved.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I like. I mean, we don't know. I don't know anything about him to say I like the pick or I don't like the pick, but I like the fact that he keeps, stressing that offensive line. Now, this next 4th round pick by the Jets, is this your guy?
he's actually a 5th round pick. This is my guy, though.
This is your guy, though.
Yes.
Let me hear it.
So my guy here, which I think might be the steal of the draft, is Bryce Hall, cornerback from University of Virginia, with the 158th pick in the draft. Is the slot he went. By far one of my favorite picks of the draft because this is a guy that was a 2nd-round talent. One ESPN analyst said they would have had him as high as maybe 37th overall coming into this year. But he got injured. 2018, yeah, got him at 158. I mean, if we're talking value picks, you can't ask for anything more than that. 3-year starter at Virginia, played 4 years there, 3-year starter, team captain, which Joe Douglas stressed. If you look at a lot of his picks, the last 4 picks, including going back to Cameron Clark, he stresses football character a lot as much as he stresses talent, which is important because he's trying to build a culture over there with the Jets. But 2018, he was first team all ACC cornerback, which is impressive because I know the ACC has been a little down over the last couple of years minus Clemson, but still, I mean, one of the top 3 conferences in college football, right? I mean, you got to say.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, he's got the opportunity to play defensive back against teams like Clemson. So he's gotten the opportunity to shadow Trevor Lawrence and, I think a young Deshaun Watson as well as many other great quarterbacks that come out of that conference. But anyway, first team all ACC 2018, and he led the nation with 24 pass breakups, which is an impressive number because it shows that he's a true cover corner. He's a bigger corner, so he could cover most receivers. He's at about, I think, 6'1", which is a relative big cornerback. But as you can imagine, the height actually takes away.
Perfect size for a corner.
Yeah, the height's great, but it takes away from his lateral quickness and his speed. So he struggles a little bit with speedy receivers. But as long as he makes contact with some of these guys near the line of scrimmage, he's able to stay with them. And I like this pick a lot. I mean, whenever you get a 2nd-round talent to fall into the 5th round like that, you immediately swoop up and
jump on it,
especially in a position of need for the Jets. I believe after a year of maybe not full-time playing, like he sits back there and he learns from some of their more their recent signings like Pierre Desir and the re-signing of Brian Poole, which I actually think are going to make the Jets secondary a little bit stronger. And of course they have those really good safeties. So now it just relies on the corners to hold up their end. I think that this is my prediction here. By the start of 2021, this guy will be a starting cornerback for the Jets. And that's coming from the 5th round.
I like it. That's what you get here in the SNS Sportscast. Bold takes that hopefully one day will come true.
Hey, listen, I think like that might be the steal of the draft right there. So
I like the boldness.
And so, Ant, why don't you bring us to your running back in the 7th round?
Yep, I'm going to wrap things up. Arizona, they stayed within the state, taking Arizona State running back Eno Benjamin. What I really like about Benjamin, he can run, he can catch, he brings all that you want in the running back position. He's going to slide in as your 3rd-string running back because, of course, you got Kenyon Drake, who came over from Miami last year and lit it up in this new Cliff Kingsbury offense. And then Chase Edmonds, the kid out of Fordham. Early in the year, before the Cardinals had Kenyon Drake, David Johnson went down with injury. Chase Edmonds stepped up, scored 3 touchdowns against the Giants in New York. So I love Chase Edmonds, little scat back. But this kid, Eno Benjamin, could use him as a 3rd down back, could use him in 1st or 2nd, whatever the situation may be. I know Kingsbury likes to throw a lot of different looks at other teams' defenses. So Eno Benjamin, he's going to come in. I don't think he's going to have a huge impact, don't get me wrong, but I do think we're going to see a little bit of Eno Benjamin, and I think he's going to shine in the very small role that he'll be given.
Yeah, well, listen, as I stressed earlier with the Jets, running back depth is necessary because
Hmm.
all it takes is for one guy to go down, and then
Yep.
suddenly you're relying on guys to come and fill in the spot that don't really deserve to be there. And also, it seems like, especially with the Cardinals, I know your lead back is going to be who? Kenyon Drake, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. So Kenyon Drake has had a solid first couple of games with the Cardinals last year, and a
He's
first
great.
good first showing. Really, like the numbers popping off the charts. But throughout his career, he's been like a decent runner. Would you say? Like he's not been like top 10 All Pro. He's a solid runner. But as you saw, how quickly did you see with David Johnson? I mean, he went from
He
being
had
what?
one great year, and then he fell off the face of the earth. But the thing I
Not
like about Drake, I like him in this offense specifically. Drake, he was always a flash in the pan in a really mediocre Miami Dolphins offense. Let's call it like it is. Ryan Tannehill running the point. It was a okay offense, but I really like this hybrid 5 wide receivers set going almost all the time. The Cardinals they used 5 receivers the most out of any team in the league, and Kenny Drake he benefits from that because everybody's looking for that pass. You sneak in a couple runs with Kenyon Drake, 3 touchdown game against the Cleveland Browns last year. I think he had like 5 or 6 in the few games he had as a Cardinal. I really like this move. And I think, Benjamin, like I said, we're kind of losing a little focus on him, but he's not going to be a number one running back. He's a
no.
seventh round draft pick that he's going to be a little bit of a project. And as the years go on, they're going to phase him in more and more in the offense. And I do like the pick.
Yeah, I do too, because like I said, I mean, the point I was trying to get to here with Kenyon Drake is sometimes in these running back, offensive schemes, I mean, Cliff Kingsbury runs a college offense pretty clearly. He has
Right.
college style quarterback running his offense, which is great. It's the new wave of the NFL. If you really look, it's like
It is.
not so much sitting back and throwing from the pocket. It's a lot of mobility. It's a lot of spreading out the offense. 5 wide, like you said. I mean, it's very interesting, and just the point I was trying to get to is sometimes in schemes like that, it's good to feed the hot hand. Of course, it's good to
Yep.
have Kenyon Drake in the backfield as your lead back, but sometimes if somebody's hot, I mean, even on a one down, third down scenario or something like that, it's sometimes good to have a nice little change of pace guy that's hot. And you've seen how many times a game could be won based on one running back getting hot. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
couple off the top of my head. The stress of being a Jets fan. First game of the season, the Jets played the Bills, as we mentioned earlier, and the Bills were running Frank Gore the whole first quarter, and then they
Yeah. When you're
decided
getting
to
gashed by a 50-year-old, that's a problem.
no. See, listen, we actually did well against Frank Gore. We held him in check. If you looked at the halftime score, the Jets were up 16-0. The point I'm getting to here is they went with change of pace back Devin Singletary, who was, I believe, a fourth-round pick last year,
Yeah, he became a
maybe.
starter over in Buffalo.
Right. And out of nowhere, Devin Singletary ran off 8 rushes for like 100 and something yards, and suddenly Buffalo wins the game 17-16. So, that little burst of energy from a change of pace back, you never know where you're getting it from. And I know, of course, we're talking about a 7th-round pick here, but it's
Right.
still something the Cardinals needed,
So it could
especially
be solid.
losing David Johnson. You might as well take a chance on a project. And overall, I think as you said, it was a really solid pick for them.
I like it. So let's go right back. So I'm done with the Cardinals. Love the draft. My grade was an A for them overall. Let's finish up real quick with the Jets.
Yeah, this is the pick I'm sure everybody's been waiting to hear. The last pick the Jets made was indeed a punter,
Yes.
something that
Yes.
most Jets fans or people that are not even Jets fans always joke about because why wouldn't
Oh,
the Jets? Why wouldn't they take a punter? I'm
typical
surprised they
Jets
didn't
thing to
take.
do.
I'm surprised they didn't take it in the second round.
I agree.
Um, but looking deeper at this, I know. Look, the Jets need a lot of things. They could have went wide out here again. They could have potentially went cornerback again.
Mhm.
But they took the best punter in the draft, which I know, as little as it sounds very much not of much of a need. It's still part of the game. Special teams is part of the game. Now, who
It's punting
knows?
is huge. I mean, there's a lot of times, especially if the Jets revert to a backup quarterback, you're going to be using that punter maybe 12 times a game. So,
Listen, you
hey,
got that right. But I could also tell you this. Even games where the Jets were in the game, a lot of times the Jets lost because of field position.
mhm,
Because the Jets offense last year, even with Darnold, like don't get me wrong, Darnold makes a huge difference. Their points per game goes up by
no question.
10, 12 points per game. I believe they
Yeah,
were around
nobody's
20, 21 points a game with Sam Darnold, which is more of a respectable number. But field position lost them games because so many times they got pinned deep and then they were able to, they punted the ball and the other team would get the ball at, good field position. So, like, you need somebody that's able to turn over the field and prevent the other team from pinning you deep every single time. Because if your offense is going to struggle and you're going to go 3 and out and you're going to get stuck in underneath your own 30-yard line, 20-yard line, even near the goal line, you're going to have trouble winning any game, or just in general changing the tone. Because how hard is it to run plays at your own 10? It's not easy.
Not at all. Hey, punting is a huge part of the game. Now, he was the best punter in the draft. Yes. Will it relate? Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Maybe they take another punter, but I guess it's a solid pick. Last round it was, right? 7th round pick.
It was their 6th pick. It was their second to last pick. They ended up trading that last pick to the Colts for another corner.
If you're gonna take a punter, take him in the 7th round, especially if he's the best one there. I mean, how many times do we see a 7th round, like a wideout, like you said? How many times do we really see a 7th round wideout being a big part of the team? But punting, you're going to see a punter every single week, whether you like it or not, and that's a huge part of the game. So not the greatest pick, not the worst pick. Maybe you want to put that right in the middle, but hey, you got a punter, so who knows?
Hey, listen, they say this kid has a leg. I mean, I saw some tape of him kicking, and coming from Texas A&M, he had some real strong punts. I believe he was named 2018. I don't know the exact name of the award. He was named best punter in college, and he was also he set a record for most 60-yard punts in a single season, and he also had the highest hang time on any punt out of any punter. So overall, to recap, I know Ant just gave his draft
overall
grade.
Draft grade. Let's hear it for the JETS.
I'm going to give Joe Douglas's first draft as the Jets general manager a B+ right now, because
grade.
I think it's hard to draft guys right after they're taken, because as much as we could talk about the film, we could talk about this. So many times do we see guys overperform or underperform when they get into the actual NFL games. So I think this is a thing we could revisit potentially mid-season of the NFL,
Definitely.
or even as we get a little bit closer to the season, because you can see how guys are playing in training camp. If there is one, of course, with this coronavirus, it's no guarantee that there's even an off season at all. But I do think that he found some difference makers in Becton and Mims, which is exactly what you're looking for. But at the same time, I can't give him anything higher than a B+ right now, because I can't.
I agree.
I can't go up from an A. So I'm I'm giving myself some room to go up, not down. I'm setting the bar a little lower, but I give Joe Douglas a lot of credit. I think his ingenuity as GM is you could tell he knows what he's doing. And I like
grade. I love it.
Yep.
So, guys, I all hope you enjoyed the first ever episode of the S&S Sportscast. We're going to have a lot more coverage coming up. Maybe next week, Maddie, we're going to bring them the best picks of the draft, the reaches of the draft, and the absolute fails of the draft. The NFL draft is a huge thing every year. But, guys, I hope you enjoyed. We'll have plenty more content coming your way. Signing off, I'm Sack.
I'm Santa, and thank you very much for listening.